name is Jaron Kluot, and I'm making this presentation today to teach you about the parts of my car. So sit down, strap in, and prepare for the next most informative 20 minutes of your life.
It seems that I'm the only one.
Let's get to brass tacks. So this here, as you can see from this pan shot, is a 1987 Chrysler Fifth Avenue. Please pardon the liquor containers in the back window. They're irrelevant to this presentation. So, first things first, the automobile was originally popularized sometime between 1900 and 1920 by, I believe the name was Henry Ford. The most popular first vehicle was the Ford Model T, I do believe, which of course was a Ford. Today you can still buy plenty of Fords, but let's be honest, who wants a Ford? Alright, so this here, as I mentioned, is a Chrysler, which is owned by Dodge. Dodge is alright, you see. They have a lot of electrical problems, but they tend to drive. Well, since I bought this car for $500, I have thus far replaced the battery, the alternator, the fuel pump, the fuel filter, rebuilt the carburetor, changed the headlight, did some weird makeshift wiring, and changed the voltage regulator. But that's unimportant. As you can see here, most old cars have an ashtray. This is for people like me who like to smoke. Don't smoke, kids. It won't get you very far in life. It's a terrible, terrible addiction. I've seen many people's lives go to waste. But I digress. Another item I'd like to show you in the car, which is an optional accessory that most people add to their car after they purchase it, so they can enjoy such beautiful sounds.
What kind of clown am I?
Is the deck. Originally, decks played CDs, but with the advent of technology, we can now plug in to such items as a phone through USB or auxiliary. And one great thing about these Pioneers deck, if you look closely one more time at the deck for about 5 seconds, you will see there's penguins and dolphins swimming around to keep me entertained. But that's unimportant. That does not affect the performance of the car. One thing that you do want to worry about, especially in the winter, is the heater. Here is a typical small heater. If you don't have that, you're going to have a terrible time. You're not going to see anything. You're going to crash into people. You're probably going to end up in prison. Once you're in prison, you're going to be locked away in a cell. You'll be reading, and there's something about soap, but I digress again. Here we have the steering wheel. This steering wheel is adjustable, like most, dependent on your height. As for me, I'm tall, so I like to keep it up here. One great function of the steering wheel is the horn. That was Jingle Bells. That lets other drivers know to get out of the way, or we may have a collision. Also attached to the steering wheel is my signal lights. These are lights on the outside of the car that I may or may not show you, depending if the video allows, that alerts other drivers that I'm about to make a turn. This allows them not to crash into me, but people typically do not understand what that means, and accidents are prone to happen constantly. This is the key. This is how I start the car. Without the key, you're gonna have to buy a new key or do the old screwdriver in the ignition trick, and it's gonna look really sloppy, but hey, we're in Prince Albert. These are common follies of vehicles. Up here we have my mirror. You may be able to see me in the mirror. That's because mirrors refract light so that you can see the image of what is directly in front of the mirror. This allows me to see people behind me, so I know when they're gonna, probably crash into me like they tend to do here in this world. Another optional feature, of course, is the air freshener. This one says Forest Fresh, but when I got it, it honestly smelled like dirty old rotten beer. But it made the car smell less like dirty old rotten cigarettes. And I was considering selling the car until I realized what a beautiful car it is. Now, I will show you what is called the dash cluster. Here we have the fuel gauge. This shows me how much fuel I have. Vehicles operate on fuel. They are internal combustion engines. Without this fuel, you will not operate the car. Here is my speedometer, which will show me how fast I am going, followed by the odometer, which shows how many kilometers are on my car. This particular car reads 9,085 kilometers. I have no idea how many miles that is. You do the math. Here we have the heat gauge, which shows how hot my car is running, which directly tends to affect how much heat I'm getting. Although if it's running too hot, I'm not going to be getting any heat because there's something wrong with the cooling system, which uses the antifreeze in the engine's heat to send heat through the heater, which is that little device there. That straggling wire is for my subwoofer amplifier. It's really messed up. That's a story for another day. Here we have the voltometer, some sort of voltmeter that shows if my battery is discharged or charged. Down here are optional clusters that are unused. Well, a few of them are used to tell me if I'm low on oil or if I should buckle up or if my door is ajar, but one of them is just there for good looks. Here we have the headlight control and my hand. This turns headlights on and off, on and off. And if we twist this, we now have interior light. Another feature of the car, which is very important to someone like me when they're smoking, is the window. It rolls down and a little bit slowly up, but now that it's warming up, it's actually getting there in due time. In front of you here, we have the glove box. This is a compartment for storing my goods, such as my owner's manual, a piece of weather stripping for my car, a hemp necklace, a remote for the deck, a piece of cut wire, part of a rear ashtray that somebody broke off and didn't tell me about, an envelope for insurance through SIAST, something to do with registration, and all kinds of other great goodies. Now, if you look back at me, you will see a very pretty man, but that's not important. In front of where I just removed all this stuff is a small grill. That is where my front speakers are. That is where you hear things such as the Sammy Davis Jr. you were hearing earlier. When you are done with your cigarette, always remember to chip it out. Only you can prevent forest fire, and as GISs and IRMs, we know the follies of a forest fire. Here we have the control for my side mirror. As you can see, the mirror is currently moving up and down. This also helps me see behind me to avoid accidents. Over here, in this door, we have another one. This one controls this window. As you can see, or I'm sorry, not window, but mirror. Sometimes a window needs to be smashed a little bit, like so, because the window is frozen from ice. Failing that, one other trick you can do is open the door and slam it with all your gusto. Now the window should move, but sometimes it doesn't. Now I will give you a quick outline of the exterior. Here we have the 87 Fifth Avenue in all its glory. We have tires in which the vehicle drives on, and rims in which the tires sit on. Here we have what is called a gas cap. This is where you inject the gas in the car. Mine's a little rusty, but what can you do? Here we have the rear window, which is tinted like all crazy hell, as well as this window. This gives you privacy in the vehicle when you are driving, and who doesn't like privacy? Here we have the rear of the car, which contains the trunk, a sort of storage compartment, which I will show you in a bit. This right here is just a little piece that is intended to open to reveal the key slot. These are the taillights. When braking, these illuminate red. When turning, The white one flashes to let people know where I am going. This is a Saskatchewan license plate. Saskatchewan, land of living skies. This shows that my vehicle is registered and legal to drive. Now you're probably wondering what the smoke coming out of this pipe is. That is exhaust. That is the byproduct and pollution of running the vehicle and burning gas. Here we have trim. This is more of an aesthetic piece of the car added by the car manufacturer to make it look a little bit better. Here we have a badging. This is 5th Avenue edition, which you will also find on the rear, which lets people know that this is a 5th Avenue made by Chrysler. Moving on to the front, you will see a fake air intake. This is also aesthetic, but some cars will use that. Here we have windshield wipers. These move up and down to pull snow or water off of my window. As you may have just heard, the hood just opened. But before we get to that, this is a cooling vent which sucks air into the radiator as we drive. The radiator you will see in a minute is the device that uses liquid to cool the components of the car so they don't overheat. Here we have the headlights which illuminate to show us the road. The outer ones are regular running headlights, and the inner ones are for high beams, which is sort of a stronger light. And the hood ornament is what you are seeing now, another aesthetic piece. When we open the engine, you can see the glorious 5.6 liter engine at work. Here we have the battery, which is what gives the car the power to start and operate. These terminals put power through these posts, and many things can be hooked up. This wire here is for my subwoofer, whereas this wire here is for my stereo. Here we have the alternator, which creates power as the vehicle runs. As the vehicle runs, it spins these belts, causing that to create power, which also operates an air conditioning pump, if you'd like air conditioning, which will cool your car. Here we have a cooling reservoir. This is where you put coolant. The coolant is what runs in your radiator, which is what you see here. That fan right there also aids in cooling the engine off by sucking air out into the radiator. This reservoir is for washer fluid, which is a sort of fluid that will shoot at the window when you desire to help clean. Here is a voltage regulator which aids my battery in not being too overpowered or too underpowered. Here we have an air intake. Air sucks into here and goes through what is called an air filter, because you don't want dirt, dust, and grime getting into your engine. And there's the air filter, which also sucks air directly into the carburetor, which is the device that mixes the fuel and the air to make a proper combustion and spark. Let's just close that up really quickly, if you do not mind. As, of course, I don't want more grime getting there than is needed. It is now closed. Moving forward, we have this strange fire retardant foam in here, which is to help the engine, if it combusts into flames, to sort of not spread the fire throughout the car. This reservoir is for brake fluid. Brake fluid you will need if you want your car to stop when you apply the brakes. And that's a general overview of the engine. Now we will move into the rear seat. This is where your rear passengers sit. They will often make a huge mess in your car that you will not know about, but that's neither here nor there. And we have the rear door here, where you can see that we did a fairly bad job on the tint. And the tint is peeling a bit, giving you an insight into the outside world. and now it's half gone. This car is equipped with optional, well, not really optional, but mandatory rear ashtray. Some models of this vehicle that are not called the Fifth Avenue will not have this ashtray. Here is the headliner, a sort of aesthetic cushiony piece of the roof that is also fairly battered, but is not important at all. You will also notice handles here. These are called oh no handles. When the car is moving too fast and you think you need to hold on and go for the ride. I will now show you the trunk as I separate my keys. Just give me a moment here, please. Here are some more keys. This key is for the doors, so I can lock my doors to protect my equipment that is in the car, such as my deck. Here is the trunk key. This is the key that will allow us access into the trunk. Without this, there's also a button in the glove box that you can barely see that will also open the trunk. In this vehicle, it does not work. But luckily for you, using the key that I have, you are going to get a rare glimpse into the trunk of a Chrysler Fifth Avenue. Well friends, I had to cut the video there for 1 second to get the key into the slot, as I'm but a man and only have but 2 hands. As you can see, the key opens the trunk through a turning motion, which allows the trunk to come up and open, giving you the rare glimpse into my trunk. Here in the trunk we have the subwoofer. This is a large speaker that creates bass when sound from the deck is pushed through this amplifier and then into the deck. Here we have another license plate from the previous owner, several boxes, a portfolio for schoolwork, which I've yet to use, some backup coolant in case my car is overheating, an old alternator. Now this is a treat. You get to see the alternator in its natural habitat. The trunk. Here we have booster cables. Booster cables are used when your car battery is dead. You can hook this up to the negative post of one car, this to the positive, and these to the said post of the other vehicle, allowing power to come through the vehicle and thus boost your car. There's a box of the rear speakers that I put into my car, and a very frozen towel and pair of shorts. And here's a very useful item, a jack. If you have a flat tire, you may want to put on a spare tire, at which point you will use this device to prop your vehicle up, thus raising the tire off of the ground, so you can then use a tire wrench to remove the bolts and subsequently remove the tire and put a spare tire on. My spare tire currently isn't here, as you can see, as I left it in somebody's backyard one day when 2 people wanted to ride in the trunk because we had too many passengers. Another staple of Prince Albert life. We will now close the trunk and take a step back, and I'll give you another 360 view of the vehicle. I must apologize for the blur. This camera is a cheap camera that does not belong to me and that I fully do not understand, and I believe it currently has an effect on, some sort of blur effect to give it a sort of rustic look. In fact, I believe it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thus concludes our video. I had a bit of trouble with the camera at the end, as could have been predicted by the ending of the video, but I hope today you learned something about the Chrysler Fifth Avenue and cars in general. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me after the presentation, and I hope you too will one day own a car, unless you already do, in which case, congratulations. Thanks.